So the Penclawdd I grew up in was, I would almost have said, to have biblical connotations, in as much there were plenty of donkeys around, women dressed like Arabs, etc., etc. The chapels were dominant, God was in his heaven, all was well with the world. So that I grew up in that Penclawdd, very warm, a lot of, how can I say, it was an animated village full of warmth and full of characters, plenty of colour. There were 3 fish and chip shops there, a cinema, the shops, little tin sheds had sawdust on them, and that was the Penclawdd I grew up in. Very different from the Penclawdd I'm seeing now, which is a little bit strange to me. Cockle women in Penclawdd, in my recollection, had an independence that was not really evident in the surrounding villages. They didn't have to wait for Evelyn Pancus to give them independence. They had wrought it off the sands. They had a fiscal independence, and that's what made them formidable. That's what made them fearsome. They had belief in themselves, and in that belief, they coloured the world around us, or around me anyway. I can only speak for myself when I relate to these narratives, but that's the feelings that imbued itself upon me, and I never forgot them. My grandmother, Sarah Waters, she was a Cockle woman, and a formidable woman as far as my recollection. She died in 1953, I think. And I knew her as an old lady, but she met my grandfather in a place in Monmouthshire called Abercarn. She was selling cockles in Abercarn, and it was her tenacity that held the family together, because my grandfather, who she married, liked his drink. It wasn't for her, she was the bedrock of all the family, because she was resilient, tenacious and formidable, but also kind. A typical example and the epitome of the Cockle woman.
I'm Margaret Davis. My mother and father, Harriet and Moelwyn Einan, went to the sands in the 1950s and sold their cockles in Swansea Market.
I'm Owen Howard. I lived in 5 Victoria Row. There are 7 houses in the row. Out of that 7, I think there was 4 cockle pickers. My mother, my Auntie Ruth, me, and with Ruth, she used to go out with her sister, Omi, who lived down here.
My grandmother, she also went to the sands on a donkey and went to London with Ruth Morgan to the broadcasting house, and they took all the facilities they used for cockle picking.
And look at if you look in the background, you see the distance they travelled. They were opposite Buryport power station, so it's a fair distance to travel, horse and cart, plus you gather in, and all type of weather. And it was like the camaraderie was there. They'd sort of wait for everyone to finish and come off together. It's like a cottage industry, really. Penclawdd was littered with them. They'd boil the cockles outside and wash them, and then some would go down to the dock and put them in there, and then take for whatever they wanted to go selling.
My parents used to boil the cockles at the top of the garden on an open fire, but then in 1952 they had to put a cockle sterilisation plant because of health and safety, and everybody else had to do the same. But they only did it for themselves, whereas some people used to do it for others.
My grandmother would make me feel important. She'd give me a job. She'd say, "You can hold the horse, boy." But we all know the horse wouldn't go anywhere. But just to make you feel good as if you're doing something. But the horse would sort of stay there.
Hello, my name is Julie Bennett. I live in a little village called Wenford. This is my great auntie Lizzie in the middle of the photograph, waiting for the tide to go out and the MOD to open the gates. In the wartime, there was gates. They had to wait to go out and in, and the bombs used to go from the point in Crofty out to the point in Llanmorlais, right on the end.
Well, my name's Brian Jones, and I've done this job of picking cockles all my life. So, Selwyn went to look for a wife, and he didn't go very far from Penclawdd, because my mother lived in Three Crosses. Anyhow, they married. I came along, and my mother, after about a couple of months, she went back out to the sands to pick cockles. So they went to work and didn't stop working all their life to be able to have something out of nothing. Not many people had good education down in Penclawdd, so there was one option, the sands, pick cockles, and that's where they ended up. I can remember back when I was a young boy, I was going to school, and it was a St. David's Day. But this particular day was a different day, because my mother and my uncle had gone to the sands, and it was a snowy day, and it got worse and worse as it was going on the day. And my father said, "I am waiting now for these cockles to come in, which they had gone out early in the morning to fetch." But the snow would come down, and my uncle and my mother were out the sands, and they picking down low in the gutter, and the snow didn't stick in the gutter. But when they came out over the top of the bank to come home, they couldn't see where they were going to. The tracks had covered. So my uncle Emmet said, "Oh, don't worry," he said, we'll go now." And off they went, 10 minutes, quarter of an hour, and they come back to the place where they started from. And my mother said, "We're in trouble, boy," she said. "We don't know the way to go home." So they said, "Right-o," he said, "we'll take the horse out of the cart." Held his tail, and they said, "Come on, boy, off you go." And the horse started to go. But they didn't know my father had come to Wenford Church, and he could see the situation that was in. So he had the bell out of the van, which used to ring the bell for people to know that he was outside with his cockles. So he took his bell and he rung the bell, going out to the church, all the way out, and he got so far, and he said, "If I don't go back now, I will be lost." And he come back with a heavy heart to think that his brother and his wife were still out there. And all of a sudden, somebody had phoned to say that his brother Emlyn and his wife, my mother, were down on the marsh road with the horse. So he speedily went down to fetch them, and he didn't care about the cockles. He was glad to see his wife and brother come home.